Hi, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Maddox Show and Tell series, where we bring the top customer success teams to show us what they're sharing with their customers that's driving results. Again, this isn't hypotheticals, it's not just practices. You're actually going to be seeing what people are sharing with their customers. And today we have a really special episode. We got a twofer. We have Jeremy Vanskoy, Senior Manager, Customer Success, Optimization, and Digital, as well as Skylar McKinstry, Senior Principal, Data Insights, Customer Success Operations at Blackbaud. Hey guys, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bex. Thanks for having us. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having
For
us.
those not familiar, what does Blackbaud do?
Yeah, absolutely, Bex. Happy to jump in and take that one. Once again, Jeremy here. So Blackbaud's the world's leading provider of AI-powered solutions for social impact. We support nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, corporate social responsibility teams, and also individual change makers. So essentially, our solutions span fundraising, financial management, digital giving, grant making, corporate social responsibility tools, and also education management. So we've got a lot of tools that ultimately we're partnering with our customers to help them move faster, work smarter, and ultimately achieve their outcomes. So as we talk today, we'll talk a little bit about our executive impact report focused on our Razor's Edge NXT solution.
So you're actually helping people do good in the world.
You got it. Absolutely. Which makes it very rewarding and why, Skylar and I have both been here for a while and really excited to be able to talk to you about the goodness that we're doing, but ultimately, how this translates to our customers out there doing good in the world.
And I'm actually curious, Jeremy and Skylar, how did you guys get to the roles you have today? What was your career path like?
Skylar, you want to start first on that one?
Sure, yeah. Mine's somewhat interesting, I would say. I started at Deloitte out of college in kind of the big four consulting realm, doing operational consulting for private and public sector. Um, I enjoyed that, learned a lot, but was looking for more of a slower pace. And I ended up relocating to Charleston and finding a, analyst job with Blackbaud that has then since grown into many different opportunities to put my data hat on in different ways, strategically building multifaceted ways as far as data goes and serving as sort of a partner and a liaison, kind of a niche role I sort of carved out for myself over my last almost 12 years at Blackbaud. Um, so yeah, it's been great, and I love kind of where I'm at now. Supporting nonprofits and supporting Blackbaud, and it's been a great journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jeremy here once again it's been 18 years at Blackbaud, and so before I got here, worked for a nonprofit organization, did some consulting, and then ultimately was doing fundraising. And at the time that I was looking for what the next step in my career was, joined Blackbaud as a sales rep. So worked with our nonprofit customers, kind of understanding their needs and goals and outcomes that they wanted to achieve, and then ultimately from there, moved into sales leadership, led a few sales teams, and then ultimately wanted to kind of pivot and moved into customer success. So when I was actually a CSM, worked with our largest animal welfare customers in the U.S. And so very, very rewarding, very exciting to work with those groups and partner with them to help them do more good in the world. And so really kind of leveraged, my skill set with our tools, our technology, and really was able to kind of help them better use our tools to achieve their outcomes. And then eventually I moved into this role, really focused on digital and optimization, where kind of working with our CSMs and our CS leaders on how our CSMs show up, right? What are the tools and resources? What are our processes? How do we leverage great technology like Matic to help deliver the goodness to our customers? And once again, be able to really replay the value of what they're achieving with our solutions, but also to provide that strategic insight. Once again, as Blackbaud's the recognized leader in this space, we work countlessly with other social good organizations. So being able to say, hey, in my experience, worked with this other animal welfare group, they're doing X really well. You may be able to consider this, or this is how they are leveraging the solution. And so being able to kind of share those stories and not always identifying specifically what organization is doing very well or not well, really kind of is able to position kind of the work that we bring and the value as a customer success organization into those conversations, into those engagements, whether it's one-to-one or at scale through like digital and optimization and automation efforts.
Yeah.
That's such a
And,
good
and my,
reminder.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead,
Oh
Scott.
no, sorry. I was going to say, yeah, my passion is getting the critical customer data to help facilitate and foster that engagement and efficiencies from our CSMs and overall, better customer experience. So,
Yeah, and as we get into the show and tell portion, you'll really see how those two items came together and why it made so much sense for Skylar and I both to join you today, Bex, because obviously kind of merging the two together to get to the ultimate outcome of what we wanted to do was really kind of where we wanted to land. So I think we'll be able to kind of show that as we talk through everything.
Yeah, I think that's where the most compelling customer touch points are, right? Is when you marry the value plus you're able to back it up with data. Also, such a huge testament to Blackbaud that both of you have been there for over 10 years. It must be an amazing place to work.
It truly is. We're proud to work here. We're proud of the mission. And once again, you can't beat the customers that we work with, right? Every day they're out there making the world a better place. So it's easy to buy in and easy to be a part of that and know that we get to play a little bit of a role in that. So
Yeah.
that's tremendous.
Definitely. So before we dive into the show and tell, we always ask a few questions around customer content strategy because even though what you're showing us is one piece, we want to still understand the whole strategy. So, what content would you say has moved the needle for you and why?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, overall is thinking about customer outcomes, right? What are they achieving and how do we replay that value to them? I think as we've gone about our strategy and how we try to tailor right message to right customer at right time, we also want to be able to layer that in with, hey, here's how you're doing, but also providing some additional benchmark data. And so once again, being a part of Blackbaud, we're able to benchmark across, the social goods space and be able to overlay folks' information and their data points to say, hey, here's how you're measuring up against organizations of similar size, of
Mhm.
similar vertical, of similar region. And so when you do that, it's always helpful for folks to say, okay, well, here's how we're doing against our goals, but how are we doing in comparison to other organizations? Sometimes that's not necessarily visibility that our organizations have. And so us being able to deliver that has consistently helped move the needle in the right way. Because once again, people are like, well, if they're doing well, why can't we do just as well, right? Why can't we move in that right direction? And so that really allows us, here at Blackbaud to be able to be a little bit more of that kind of strategic advisor and really partner with them to kind of move folks in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think especially that's one of the benefits of working with a company like Blackbaud is you have that access to that expertise and those insights. So makes total sense.
Yeah.
What part of the customer journey deserves more attention? Maybe doesn't get as much love as it should.
What do you think there, Skylar? You have any
hmm.
thoughts?
Um, I think what we found is when we have key users or key players at the organization that offboard or we bring someone else on to replace that role, and we don't necessarily have a good triggered automated way to identify that and sort of, go through almost a reignition of onboarding that new person or role that may have been an advocate for us or, maybe a knowledgeable user and they were benefiting from the solution because of that resource. And so I think catching that, in between the land and renewal cycle, can be challenging. And I think it's an area that definitely deserves more of an effort to help solve and sort of bring into this digital automated age of engagement and outreach when that occurs. I think that's
Yeah,
one that came to mind when I thought about this.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Skylar, because Bex, for us, an organization could have Blackbaud solutions for 15, 20 years,
Mhm.
but then somebody turns over one of their key stakeholders, one of our power users, our largest advocate. It's essentially in some instances where we have to go and engage and reinstitute and re-educate in a lot of ways of the value and the benefits and how to best leverage the tools and solutions. So as we've continued to be on this data journey of getting insights and outcomes, there's also that element to what Skylar was talking about of like when we see new users, how do we then go spin up kind of a new onboarding or a re-onboarding experience? And so those
Yeah.
have been some things that we've been working on right now with our great onboarding team of how do we do that? How do we educate these folks? Because once again, customer tenure doesn't necessarily mean anything with user tenure. And so
Yep.
that's where
Yep.
it's really important for us to ensure, hey, they know the value that they're receiving from Blackbaud, but we also provide them plenty of opportunities to engage with us and also the resources that we've put together to ensure we're cultivating the right path for them as they're getting started in their journey to be successful.
Yeah, and a lot of our customers can be very small and have 1 to 2 people like running their entire solution for them, right? And they might be getting value out at that time with that knowledgeable resource, and that all of a sudden that person leaves, and as time passes, and that's not something we help, foster a transition in the right way, then, they're going to start hitting, that point of not feel like they're getting value out of the solution, and that's the last outcome we want, right? At the end of the day. So.
Yeah, I love the idea of taking a more proactive approach to what can sometimes feel like an oh no moment. So
Mhm.
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And last question, what are the big no's when it comes to customer content?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll
Yeah.
give the first one, which is
Yeah.
work with your marketing team from a branding perspective. So we designed some really good stuff, and then we're like, oh, we probably should have marketing take a look at this
Oh
before
yeah. I thought
we.
I knocked it out of the park,
It
and
looked
what they
great.
gave
Like,
back to me was way better,
yeah,
and cleaner. But
100%. So I would say that's the first one. But Skylar, I think you want to really hit on the key data point, which I think is important for us to convey to Bex in the audience for sure.
Also, to be clear, I did
Yeah.
not make them say that. They said that of their own volition.
That's right. Yeah, we learned
Yeah.
that the hard way for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and it's not just marketing, it's product. They're servicing stuff. You
Yeah.
don't want to be misaligned with what they're doing or building, to sort of relay those outcomes or progress towards performance outcomes and product, right? And then, your data COEs, your governance, right? Like you have to feel pretty tight about your data, and we're getting there, right? Because when you have that trust and know that you can count on those data points to really inform your strategic conversation, that's a powerful thing to have, right? Because the idea here with what we're doing too is like we're not just wanting to deliver data, right? We're wanting to create a structured ability to engage with the customer and have a conversation with us at the end of the day, as a last result. We get other things from that, great, awesome, but we want to give that opportunity, right? And I think one big don't for me is I is typically try to avoid hard numbers. I think benchmarking among many advantages of, giving a customer, showing that we're tracking this and we're tracking it in a way that matters to you and
Mhm.
gives you some idea of how you're performing, amongst your peers is great and awesome and what most of our customers want, right? And it also helps you avoid those hard numbers. Now you will see we do show them in some cases, where they can see those numbers in product, but you know, you don't want to get the customer, you don't want to derail the conversation and the point of the message by them getting fixated on a single data point that they disagree with. And
Yeah.
seen that happen too often. So I would say, that's definitely a big don't for me, but that's from a data lens. There's obviously many other things, but that's something I try to, figure out a better way to tell the story without a hard number if I can help it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd also say too, we also wanted to stay away from like specific user information and behaviors and things like that. There's limitations to what we can even see anyways, but we didn't want to be like, Bex, you've done this, this, and this, and Skylar, you've done this, this, and this. We wanted to stay higher level. We wanted to stay outcome focused. We wanted to stay like key themes and drivers of usage that we know translates into successful outcomes with the
Mhm.
customers. That's where we wanted the messaging. Once again, because the conversation is to engage with these customers and really show outcome, but also be that strategic guide, right? If they see something that they're like, hey, we're struggling here, help me,
Mhm.
that's an opportunity for the CSM to engage, to be able to provide that additional goodness and TLC to help the customer get to where they're trying to get to.
Yeah, and that's a good point because we're not always going to have a positive story in that data, right? And we have to figure out, and those are probably the engagements and conversations where we're getting the most out of each other for that strategic partnership. Um, so yeah, super important. Don't overcomplicate it either, though. You'd be surprised how often customers just like, just tell me what I'm not using, you know? Um, because I've heard in a lot of EBRs I sat into, and we were kind of rolling this out to customers pre like a more broad rollout. So,
Yeah. Excellent.
Awesome. So now for everyone's favorite part of the episode, I'm going to pass it over to you, Jeremy and Skylar, to walk us through the
Sure.
executive impact report.
All right.
sure.
Let's see
Thanks.
here. We're going to share. Hopefully, we can see that. Bex and Skylar, does that look good on your screen?
I don't see it quite yet.
Okay, let me
I
go
do not
here
either.
again. Okay, how about now?
Still not on my end.
Okay,
Oh,
one more second.
There we
Third time's
go.
a charm.
we're in.
All right, excellent. No, that's great. Okay, team. Well, thank you. So this is our executive impact report. We have this for our flagship product, Razor's Edge NXT. We have also built one for Financial Edge NXT as well. So as Skylar and I kind of walk through today's executive impact report, obviously we'll kind of highlight some of the key elements and what we were thinking about as we were crafting this. So once again, the beauty of leveraging the tool like Matic is being able to kind of programmatically map out the key fields and resources that we can to push this information nice and easy into this template. So first and foremost, as we start this report, and as a customer would come and see this and understand this, we start with their performance outcomes. So once again, how is the organization doing? How are they matching up year over year? And in this case, the past 3 years to show specifically their performance from a fundraising perspective, right? So as Razor's Edge NXT helps organizations raise more money to fund their mission. And so we wanted to be able to show this in the context of how they're performing year over year from 23 to 25. So you can see things like donor retention. What is that retention rate as far as bringing donors who gave last year back into the fold the following year? What is the recapture rate of those lapsed donors, people that have given to you before that we've now been able to bring back into the fold? Acquisition rate as far as acquiring new donors, revenue per donor, active donor growth, and then ultimately their percentage of active sustainers, those folks that are giving monthly that are able to contribute to your mission and do that from a standpoint of that recurring gift. Skylar, anything you want to call out on this slide in particular?
I think you covered it pretty well. I will say, throughout this, what we try to be consistent with is where applicable, embedding some natural expansion opportunities while we're delivering that sort of value moment at the time to seem a little more natural as opposed to, a cold call of sorts or, just throwing it out of nowhere. Um, and then we also like to provide a key resource or resources, from each so that the customer can go there and figure out how they can better adopt the solution and take actions to help improve these numbers should they not be favorable. And so we led with this to show here's how you're doing, you're performing for what you care about. And then going into the next thing of how you're adopting that solution usage that influences those outcomes you desire, and where do we have opportunities to grow together strategically to increase usage or take actions in our solutions that might help drive more positive outcomes in that first slide.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that you'll notice too, as we kind of navigate through this experience, is we wanted the slides and the information to be able to also stand on its own. So not always every time is this a one-to-one review of customer and customer success manager. We have also sent this out in an automated fashion to customers to share this information. And we've received great feedback in both instances. So as we're thinking about that, if I'm not there as the CSM to curate the experience when a customer is looking at this, we want to make sure it's able to stand alone. So as we were working through different iterations here, that was really important for us as we were doing a little show and tell with test customers and having our early adopters and working with our CSMs was to make sure that somebody could read this, they could understand it, and know specifically what we are trying to tell them. So as we're looking here specifically at this usage, and Skylar can talk here in a second about how we benchmarked and everything, we've essentially kind of divided up the tool in a couple areas. So like the basics of like you're using your fundraising solution. Are you adding records? Are you merging them? Are you working within the dashboards to things that we know drive value like online giving? And are they doing their transactions through the system? Communications, email sends, et cetera. Portfolio, are they managing major gifts and adding opportunities there? And then last but not least, events. So for some of our organizations, they may not do event fundraising. This could be something, an opportunity for them to maybe think about, or an area, once again, where through conversation, it may look like it's an issue, but it may not be because an organization doesn't fundraise in that direction. So definitely a big opportunity for us to engage in some specific questions ask the customer, hey, tell me a little bit more about, have you tried adding GIFs directly into Razor's Edge NXT? What was the experience? How can we maybe help, or things of that nature? Skylar, you want to talk a little bit about how we crafted the benchmarks?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So we worked with our insights team and our data COE to create benchmarks at different time frames. This one shows essentially is a trailing 3 months. We benchmark usage for these metrics for customers of the same vertical and size. Size being their annual revenue, not revenue they bring to Blackbaud. So we segmented them into sizes and with their verticals, and that's how we created their benchmark segments essentially to put their usage up against their peers. And it essentially is a quartile type benchmark. We take a median across that benchmark segment and, are you 25% below, another 25% below or 20% higher? And that's how we get to this sort of 5 color scale. Like Jerry mentioned, we built this in Gainsight for our solution level relationships. So this translates directly into what a CSM would also consume in the system, since we're using Gainsight as our primary source currently. So there's no misalignment in what the customer should be seeing, versus what the CSM might be seeing in our Gainsight solution as well. And in the basics area is essentially that's a measure group we created to also serve as kind of an adoption risk indicator. Like if you're not doing these couple things, then we probably need to engage and see what's going on pretty proactively, right? And then we have a ton of different metrics across our solutions. And so we did a good job of partnering with, key senior CSMs and senior product managers to really uh, dwindle that down to kind of what are the key metrics in each of these areas that are going to help best drive, the performance outcomes in that first slide. And that's sort of how we got to this view. We have supplemental reporting and things in our systems with other metrics, but we wanted to get to a simple, clean type version that's going to have the most impact, as far as the customer facing output.
Right. A couple questions. This is a
Sure.
great slide. I love that y'all don't shy away from what might feel like not a positive moment. So, first follow-up question, Jeremy, like
Mhm.
what are your tips for making sure the conversation doesn't go sideways?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is it's not a judge. We're not judging anyone based on the usage, right? It's an
Mhm.
opportunity for us to just learn a little bit more about the organization. The guidance we always provide our CSMs is just to ask questions and be curious, right? If there's the dashboard views are down, just be asking questions like, Bex, have you gone to the NXT dashboards? Have you thought about, X, Y, and Z, or how are you doing X, Y, and Z? And then letting me kind of pivot and direct the conversation there. So it's really more of getting a good lay of the land and
Mhm.
just trying to see maybe what they react to first. We are innovating at the speed of light, it seems like right now at Blackbaud. And so many things are changing and are improving and are just like growing in different areas. And so sometimes, this is just kind of a place and time for us to just pause, connect, see where there may be some things for us to focus on, and then kind of put a plan in action together. So let's just say if this whole slide was, orange or red, well, that doesn't mean it's a bad customer. It doesn't mean that they're not doing great with their mission and plenty of other areas. It just means we've got an opportunity to work together and partner and find 2 or 3 things that are most important to them and then start working together, right? And so as we talked a little bit earlier about some of the transitions as, key longtime users leave an organization, well, we can see that decline. As Skylar was mentioning, we leverage Gainsight. We can see the usage trends. We can see what's happening there. That sometimes will help tell a story, which will then allow us to, prompt a conversation or an engagement. So I would say first and foremost, always survey the lay of the land, ask questions, be curious, and then see where that takes you. And once again, if we're focused truly on what the customer's outcomes are, what they're trying to accomplish at their organization and with our solutions, that will also help lead us to the right direction of where we maybe should focus.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that shift. I mean, the mindset shift. It's not about pointing out where they're wrong, but it's about understanding what's going on in their world and how they're thinking of things.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
I feel like the partnership, with customer success, especially, or any of our customer-facing resources is going from a relationship first to almost a data first, right? And so to build that trust, you want to start with transparency, and it's not, we're here to make sure you're getting the most out of the solution. And if you're not, that would be something I hope we are proactively and prescriptively addressing based on what we know about your adoption and how you're using things.
Speaking of building trust, next question for you, Skylar. Benchmarking data is clearly very powerful in terms of really positioning the CS person as an expert, a subject matter expert. For people who are just getting started, what are some of your tips for like how to approach benchmarking data?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I think we're maturing here as an organization as well, but I would say first you want to start with trying to standardize across the business as best as possible, since you have so many different types of outputs you're providing to a customer, data you're providing to a customer, and where benchmarking is incorporated, again, it's about building that trust, right? So you want the customer, when they see something different, but there's benchmarking, to know like they already understand what that means for us, right? So we partner with our data COE to establish what that would be in as simplistic fashion as possible. That would also be insightful, right? Which is tough. I think you could go into so many permutations of different criteria for a benchmarking that you almost end up getting too narrow. So I think you want to, test your hypotheses, right, of what you think, and make sure that that kind of plays out how you would thought, in a way, to, as far as, a standard deviation from that middle point, right? You don't want it to be overloaded too far one way or the other. So you kind of want to find that sweet spot, with that, with as minimal, customer uh, criteria as possible, for simplicity's sake, and just make sure that everybody understands what it means internally and externally that's consuming it.
So don't try to boil the ocean and create a lot of criteria. Keep it simple.
Yep,
Yep, yep,
absolutely.
and especially out the gate. And that's not to say we might not expand this criteria, right? But we have a framework at least to recommend something and get agreement across the business and communicate that change if we do. One being like a region, we've started to notice that can have um, certain nuances to it that could be valuable to incorporate. So, we can bring that up, go through that process, and iterate as needed. But out the gate, we wanted to, stay under three data points as far as, can we get what we need in an insightful way? Again, like you said, without boiling the ocean.
Cool. Thanks, you guys.
Love it. Absolutely. So just moving on to the next one, just as we're talking about usage, we're talking about opportunities for growth. Razor's Edge NXT right now is in an awesome, amazing transitional period as we are moving folks out of some legacy functionality, as we're moving completely to our unified view. And so with that, it is important that as we are continuing to push and innovate and roll out new processes, new workflows, that we did want to take some time with customers just to show where maybe there are some areas that they're still using some of the legacy technology or legacy ways to do things. And so in this regard, not only are we kind of showing that and making that visible just to continue with the discussion, because this kind of helps us on the previous slide on where there are opportunities, we also, as we mentioned earlier, want to make sure that they understand all of the resources that are available to help them on their journey. As we mentioned, this is not always curated by a CSM. We do send this out through automation, and it'll come from a CSM as an email. It'll say, hey, book time with me and we can discuss. There's plenty of ways you can see here where the CSM's information is. But once again, it's really just giving them the information, the customers, making sure they understand where there are opportunities, and once again, understand that we are here to partner with them on this journey, once again, ultimately to lead them to be successful and achieve their outcomes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then as we keep moving forward, last but not least here really is just the key elements of resources. So as Skylar was kind of getting these mapped out, we wanted to make sure that our customers had everything they needed at their fingertips to be successful. So every way that they can engage with us, whether that's getting thought leadership, industry best practices, the Blackbaud University curriculum for the products, our product update briefings where we're sharing the amazing enhancements that are coming twice a year, as well as our resource center. So as we are on this continuous journey, of innovating at the speed of light. We want to make sure that our customers know how they can get to the right information, how they can be supported, not only from their CSM, but also these great materials that we have available. Skylar, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, one thing I want to say, kind of just going back to like a goal as far as content, especially that's delivered in a one-to-many fashion, is that you want to try to make this actionable for the customer. And so we didn't want to let perfection deter progress, right? So the plan was always to iterate on this template. And, we're working right now on sort of building out a next best action model where, it assesses your usage, so think of it as on that scorecard per se, where you're red, we are following that up with these are the top two priority actions you should take now to help change this. And here's the applicable resources to help you do that, as opposed to, a general resources slide, which this is still very helpful, impactful, allows customer to engage with our assets and with us. But I think the North Star is something a little bit more detailed as far as the action to take specific to your areas where there's those growth opportunities. So I just
Yeah,
wanted
that's a really good point too, Scholar. And I think that's where it's really, so important to use a great tool like Matic that we can get that built, we can have that in our systems, and then we're able to push that out in scale where it's customized and tailored for each individual customer. That's just, you think about trying to do that manually, across our entire RENXT customer base. It's just you just can't scale it. And so,
yeah.
to that point, as we continue to iterate and as we've hopefully explained, like, get something out there, get reactions, and continue to build and grow and expand what you want this to do and how, the messaging you want to deliver. It also allows, for us to make sure as we're adjusting our approaches, being able to plug that information in and ensuring that it's, specific to that customer, the right time, the right moment, for what they should be focused on and doing.
Yeah. And if you don't have a queryable asset library, start working on that internally. That's the linchpin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Y'all mentioned a couple times that hey, you send like an email version of this for like for some of the accounts. Philosophically, what are like the fundamental differences between what you would show on this versus what you would show in email, if there
Yeah,
are any?
Yeah, there's really not. I mean, we're still linking to the asset. One thing that we did do is we wanted, when we were sending to our customers, via email, we did give them a preemptive email ahead of time. So as a best practice, just saying, hey, we are sending you this. It's coming the next day, this executive impact report. Nowadays in the era of cybersecurity, everybody's always like, be hesitant of opening attachments or things like that. And so we wanted to really let folks know, hey, this is from Blackbaud. This is amazing. We want you to engage with it. And so in those instances, within that email also, it's, we have the abilities. You can send it from a CSM. You can plug in some links to say, hey, book time with me. Or if it's being curated in a one-to-one conversation, if Skylar's my client, we have our strategic alignment call this month, I may run this, pull this up, and we may talk through this this time in this conversation. And then future times, I may just produce it and send it to him as one of my as a part of my follow-up email. So definitely a lot of strategies there, but
Yeah.
we're not adjusting what is being sent in the current iteration from what goes through the email versus what's getting brought up in a one-to-one conversation. Skylar, anything
Yeah.
you'd add there?
Yeah, I'd say if you have a diverse mix of customers like we do, you definitely want to test all scenarios where you are applying conditional slide logic. And I also recommend getting into a UAT quick with your CSMs because they're going to help point things out, generating these one-to-one a lot quicker than whoever your tool admin is running bulk tests, right? So that allows a good amount of time to feel comfortable about what's being presented to the customer and that it's applicable if you are kind of applying those conditional logic throughout. I will say too, one thing I would recommend from a data perspective is when you're onboarding, if you can get connected to source from any of your internal data platforms directly, as opposed to an internal system like Gainsight, I would recommend that. That definitely would help, you know, get through these bulk emails a lot quicker, so you're not running into API limitations, and also you get a lot more flexibility in how you're creating that dynamic content. We kind of hit that gate running, went out the gate running, and now we'll eventually go to primarily sourcing out of our Databricks internally. But if that's something you can get ahead of, if you're a newer customer, I'd recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Just the final things here, just to kind of close the loop. I mean, once again, as we're thinking about this, we're connecting with customers. Sometimes this may be the thing that gets the customer to want to engage with success, especially if we're sending it via email. We want to include, who that success manager is, who the account executive is, who the renewal specialist is. So not only providing that contact information in the emails, but also what does that person do in relation to the account and account ownership. Once again, another plug. Hey, we're here to help. Let us know. We want to make sure you're achieving more with the tool. And then last but not least, I think is just having a good data component slide just to ensure that people understand the definitions of what things mean, how we're defining them. That was a big piece as we were looking at this, as we were sharing information, as we were going through the benchmarking. We just wanted to ensure, once again, that it was very easy for this resource to stand alone if it was being delivered, standalone via automation through email, or once again, if we're having a one-to-one conversation. So we just wanted to ensure that we had all of these
Yeah.
resources here.
Yeah. And then plenty of enablement resources outside of that. You want to make sure that your employees that are consuming this information and having conversation about it understand it very well, right? Again, not deter the message that we're all trying to achieve or derail the conversation. So, and we actually supplemented that with here's a recommended actions. I would take if you see this as red or that in a conversation while we work towards a more automated way to deliver that to both CSMs and customer. So I think that stuff was extremely helpful, right? And is a must, honestly, for these things to be successful from a one-to-one perspective.
Yeah, 100%. I think internal enablement of your team, because when the customer says, okay, I've got an opportunity here, this is red, what do I need to do to get better? You got to have your team versed and ready to go. And
Mhm.
so I think that's really a key piece there is having that internal enablement, prepped, ready to go, understanding what those opportunities are, and also what are potentially other solutions or, consulting services that we could position as well if a customer feels they need more assistance than kind of the just one-to-one contact with the CSM or kind of our resource and materials. So Bex, that's our last slide. If there's some final questions, if you want to take back over or stop the sharing so it doesn't take me 3 times to do that, we can close on that, or we can go back to a slide, whatever you want there.
No, this has been great. I think y'all just walked us through an amazing example of what benchmarking could really unlock for a company. So seeing those slides has been great. Thank you so much, Jeremy and Skylar, for not only sharing, but really giving us like that insight into how to make something like this a reality. So thank you both for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely, Bex. It was great to be with you.
Yep. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. Great chatting with you.